Hey, okay. Lord of the Rings book three, although we have a little bit to finish from book two. And like I said, hopefully you'll get a chance to meet my son next week. Maybe join me, Alex. This is his spring break is a week before ours. He teaches in San Antonio. Well, Bernie, technically. Okay, I want a few things that we didn't get to cover in book two in the lecture I did, in the one that I recorded. So turn to page 392. Let's just look at a couple things that are really important here. First of all, we get to see here the Argonaut as they're going down. As they're going down the river Anduin, right? That's the great river that runs all the way down, and they see the statues of the great kings, and they do this so well in the movie. And did any of you see the Lord of the Rings exhibit that came to the Museum of Natural Science? Oh, it was great, but that was a long time ago. And it's gone around the country. But do you remember, Clint, when you walked in, you saw the statues when they're putting their arms out like that, their hands out? It was there. They weren't as huge as they looked in the movie. And they also had, the most disturbing thing was the giant naked troll that was poised in the same way as, the famous Vitruvian Man that Leonardo da Vinci did. But it was a scary naked troll. Anyway, I don't know if you remember that one. But anyway, we see the Argonaut. And the Argonaut is the two great kings, the two sons of Elendil. And who are the two sons of Elendil? Anybody know their names? Good. Yeah, the other one's called Anarion. Isildur and Anarion, those two, right? And those are the two great kings. Of course, Isildur, he's the one that, had the ring. And it destroyed him. But those are the two statues, right? And the one of them is Aragorn is a direct descendant of Isildur, right? And I guess Anarion would be his great uncle. And as he passes them, and they're described on page 392, but if you want to turn to 393, I'm trying not to read too much. Look what happens when he passes by. It says, oh boy, that was kind of cool. Is that Clinton?
No.
Oh.
There's only one person who has a noisy phone.
Oh, is that Chris?
It rhymes with this.
It rhymes with this? Okay. So, towards the top of 393, "Fear not," said a strange voice behind them. Frodo turned, and remember, Frodo and Sam are in the boat with Aragorn. Frodo and Sam turned and saw Strider, and yet not Strider, for the weather-worn ranger was no longer there. In the stern sat Aragorn, son of Arathorn, proud and erect, guiding the boat with skillful strokes. His hood was cast back, and his dark hair was blowing in the wind. A light was in his eyes, a king returning from exile to his own land. "Fear not, long have I desired to look upon the likenesses of Isildur and Anarion, my sires of old. Under their shadow Elisar," that's the name that Galadriel gave him, "the Gelfstone, son of Arathorn of the house of Valandil, Isildur's son, heir of Elendil, has naught to dread." Then the light of his eyes faded, and he spoke to himself, "Would that Gandalf were here. How my heart yearns for Minas Anor and the walls of my own city. But whither now shall I go?" Does anybody know what he means by Minas Anor? I'll draw it over here. You've seen it so many times, okay? There's the great river Anduin, right, that runs down. And on one side, over here, is one tower. And then the other side here is the other one, okay? These are the two big towers. And just to show you the whole thing, coming down this way, that's the Misty Mountains, right? The Misty Mountains, which is where they went underneath, and the Balrog was. And the Misty Mountains go this way. And then the White Mountains go this way, right? I mean, Ered Nimrath and Ered Luin, I think it is. And again, I don't think mountains actually grow like that. But anyway, and there is a gap in between the two mountain ranges. You know what we call that? That's the Gap of Rohan, in case you notice that, okay? That's why. And do you know what's right here on the side of the Gap of Rohan? That's where Isengard is. The map here. That's where Isengard is, and at the center of Isengard is a giant tower going straight up. You know what the tower's called? Oh, Thank you. It's called Orthanc. That's good. When I teach the undergrads, I do give them identification. Too many for that. But just to get an idea, okay? And then all the way at the end of the mountain range, right here, overlooking the water, okay, is a place called Minas Anor. Now that's what it used to be called. Minas means tower, and Minas Anor means the tower of the sun. Okay? Then, right in the middle of Anduin, used to be the most important headquarters, and that's Osgiliath. Okay? And then on the other side, which is basically where Mordor is, on the other side, it's the edge of Mordor, really, because then you've got the mountains running down like this. Like I said, the ridiculous mountains that go like this. And this is pretty good because I can't draw to save my life. It's wonderful. I'm teaching the MFAs. You guys are giving me vibes because I can't draw. Over here, it was called Minas. Remember? Well, it will be, but in the beginning it was called Minas Ithil. Okay? Because Minas Ithil means the tower of the moon, and Minas Anor means the tower of the sun. Okay? But later on in the Third Age, the Nazgul seized control of Minas Ithil and changed its name to Minas Morgul, which means the tower of black magic or dark sorcery. Right? And when Minas Ithil became Minas Morgul, a threat, and Osgiliath just fell to ruins. Right? Then Minas Anor changed its name to Minas Tirith. Okay? You know what that means? It means the tower of the guard. Okay? So when Aragorn says Minas Anor, he's remembering the real good old days before this fell. Right? And basically, what happened was the two sons, Isildur and Anarion, each control. Actually, Isildur originally was here, and Anarion was here. The two sons, and the reason they controlled these towers was because their father, Elendil, he was up in Anor, right, in the northern part that completely fell apart. Not that far from the Shire, really. And one of the headquarters of the northern kingdom was a mountain called, small mountain called. Where did Frodo get stabbed? Weathertop, good, Weathertop, right? In the old language, it was Amon Sul.
What are the definitions for these words' meanings? Where do they come from?
Oh, no, this is Tolkien's invented language.
So,
Yeah, so in other words, you
in
can't.
his invented language, though, was there like a little booklet?
Well, he does explain it. I mean, a lot of times in the appendices, it explains it. Sometimes in the book itself, it'll tell you it means this in the common tongue. Yeah, but all of these, I mean, none of us are guessing. Tolkien says somewhere what it means. And you could probably start recognizing M-O-R is the word for black or dark, as in Morgoth, the dark enemy, Morgul, the dark magic, and then Mordor, the dark land. So you start recognizing some of the roots. But no, this is all his invented language. And again, a lot of times, everything has lots of different names, because it may have the name of, the Numenorian name, and they have the elf name. Sometimes it's got the low elf and high elf name, and the common speech is basically English, right? It's just wild. He tells us, but it's not like you sit down and he tells you the meaning of all the words. He tells you as you're going along, and then sometimes in the appendices it'll tell you as you put it together. But just so you can sort of see the whole thing. And at the end of Book 3, we are going to discover the Palantir. You know what the Palantiri are? Palantir? Those are the seeing stones. You've seen the movie. It'll become important later. But just because I've got it on the map, it turns out that there's 7. Most of them are gone. But there are 7 of them. And in the good old days, this is where they were. One was here. One was here. This was the major one. It was called the Osgiliath stone. One was here. One was at Isengard. And then 3 of them were in the north. One of which was at Weathertop. Okay, so you kind of get a feel for all of this. And just... Oh, yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All of these things were built by the Numenorians, for the people from Westerners, from Numenor. So there, and see how it works? 3 in the north for the father, and sort of 2 each for the sons. It's kind of the way it was spread out. So 3, and the seeing stones, who they were made by? What if anybody knows? They were made by Feanor. They were made the same guy that made the Silmarillions. Silmarils. Made the Silmarils. Also, just in case you're wondering, okay, because over here is Rohan, right, and over here is Gondor. And just in case you're wondering, the Rohirrim, the horse boys, they were originally from the north, up towards the Shire. But what happened was that one day Gondor was in trouble. That's the people that are at the Tower of the Guard, Minas Tirith, and they called for help, and a young horse leader named Eorl the Younger, because he started as a young man, came down there and rescued, sort of saved the day. And because of that, the kings of Gondor gave to the Rohirrim all the land that we call Rohan. And it's, of course, long, grassy land, because they're horsemen. And the Rohirrim are basically the Anglo-Saxons from Beowulf, but with horses. So they're like the perfect Anglo-Saxons from Tolkien's point of view. Right? And what happened is that even though the Gondorians from Minas Tirith, even though they gave all of Rohan to them, they kept Isengard for themselves, because they sort of built it. But then, as we move into the Third Age, and there were more and more problems, and it was too far away because they were busy with what's going on in Mordor, they cut a deal, and the deal was that Saruman would take control of Isengard. And that was good. That was good for the Rohirrim, so they didn't have to worry about it. And it was too far away from... So, at first, Saruman made a good use of it, but, as we know, he goes bad. And I guess I should mention, obviously, that they gave the Rohirrim the land of Rohan, but there was, implied that if Gondor ever needed them, the Rohirrim would come. And some of you know how the people of Gondor signal to Rohan that they need them. See the movie? Yeah, those incredible fires go shh. And one of the things they change in the movie, it makes it more exciting, and we always want to give the hobbits more to do in the movies, right? So, in the book, if you haven't read it yet, you'll be surprised that there is no tension between Gondor and Rohan. Everything's fine. And it actually is Gondor. In fact, even Denethor himself calls for help, and they come. But the movie, to add more tension, makes it tension, and so Pippin has to sneak up there and light it, which I think works very well for the movie. But just so you know, in the book, there is not that rivalry. Okay, there's more of the internal rivalry because the king Theoden has been corrupted by Wormtongue. By the way, did any of you think of this? Did any of you think of the interview for Wormtongue when he comes to the court of Theoden? It says, "Sir, I would like to come and advise you. Here's my resume. I've done all these things." "Oh, really? Tell me, what is your name, son?" Grima? Grima what? Don't you have another name?" No, it's not important. "Come, tell me, what's your name? What is your name, advisor, wise counselor?" Wormtongue? Okay, you got the job. It's kind of hysterical. Don't you think? Anyway.
I thought Wormtongue was a name that he was given by the Rohirrim.
Sort of later on, man. But he still goes by Wormtongue, yeah. I mean, I guess ultimately they do that, but he's always called. Yeah, the Wormtongue. But it's just wonderful, It's like the new movie version of Maleficent. If your name's Maleficent, you're probably evil already,
I like the name Maleficent.
You like it?
Yes.
Well, maybe, yeah. But anyway, I wasn't going to even do that, but that just kind of give you literally a lay of the land, so you can get a feel for all these things, right? And so, the Nazgul, for a while, have controlled Minas Morgul. And there's 9 of them, but there's one chief, right? The Lord of the Nazgul, who's the most horrible, the one that's going to be killed by Ellie. "I am the woman." Oh, your favorite line. Anyway.
Very similar.
Good. You want to say again? Oh, I'm sorry, it's called the Undoing. The Undoing. And you'll see that a lot. It's often just called the Great River. And that's where we are now. Remember, they're going down the Great... When they leave Lothlorien, they're going down the river, and at a certain point, they're going to have to get to a point where you have to decide which way to go. One way will take you more towards Mordor, the other way is going to take you down by Osgiliath and take you to Minas Tirith. And of course, Boromir wants to go to Minas Tirith, which is where he's his father. And another thing, just so you know, okay. Now, when Minas Ithil fell and became Minas Morgul, that was the end of that line of kings. But here, the line of kings coming down from Isildur continued here at Minas Tirith, but the last of the kings, okay, actually, to be honest, this is really where Isildur was. and this is where Anarion was. And the line of Anarion ends, as I'll tell you in a second. And that's why it's going to fall to Aragorn as the great descendant of Isildur, to be technical, what happens. So, the last descendant of Anarion decided to challenge the Witch King, or the Lord of the Nazgul. And the prophecy said, no man can kill me, right? It becomes important later with Eowyn. And foolishly, the last king went against him and was slain. And when he died, that was an end of the kings of that line. But the Isildur line was still there, but they were the Rangers, ultimately, right? And so what happened was that Minas Tirith fell under the reign of the stewards, which means, quite literally, they will hold the kingship until the return of the king. And then they're supposed to turn it over. And you understand that the stewards have been ruling Minas Tirith for 500 years. And there's a great line, I think Boromir said, when will it be long enough? When will it, be like, never, okay? And the king comes back, and that's why it's true, and you see it in the movie. What really is supposed to happen is that there is the high throne here, right, where the king sits, and then there's like a staircase, and then there's a little throne right there. And that's where the steward's supposed to sit, and you see it in the movie sometimes, because he's waiting. But 500 years, that's a traditional place, right? Never long enough, as long as we wait for the return of the king. It's a little background. Okay, let's look at the dialogue between Frodo and Boromir before we move on. And that starts with page 397. It's in the next chapter. The breaking of the fellowship. It is sad. It really is sad. So he says, Frodo goes on. I love how everybody makes Frodo make the decisions for everything. Aragorn is about to be the king of Middle-earth. It's like, Frodo, you make the decisions. Thanks, buddy, okay? Frodo, what does the ring bearer say? It's amazing, okay? It's amazing. And he goes off alone, and then Boromir follows him, okay? And he says, 397, towards the top, I was afraid for you, Frodo. If Aragorn is right and orcs are near, then none of us should wander alone, and you least of all, right? Where there are many, all speech becomes a debate without end, but two together may perhaps find wisdom. Let's sit down, Frodo, and we'll talk. We're already a little bit suspicious, because Boromir said in the Council of Elrond, well, why don't we use it? Right? Now, he'll say something else here. I'll show you in a moment that the movie moved it slightly. But so far, that's the only real indication that Boromir might go bad, that he asked that question. Good? Oh, actually, that's true. That is another good one. That's right. About the ring, what you would do. That's true. Because one of the things he says at the bottom of the page, they move it to, remember before they go under the mines of Moria. They don't want to do that, but why do they have to go into the mines? Yeah, they can't go over because it's snow-capped, and Saruman is messing with them and all. And the movie, I think, maybe a good job, it moves it over. Somehow Frodo's dropped the ring, and Boromir picks it up, and he says, just like he says at the bottom of the page, the ring, is it not a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt for so small a thing? And as I told you, every time we watch the movie, as a marathon, I always stop and say, sounds like my daughter Stacy. She's about 5'1". So. Anyway, so go back to where we started. He says, "You are kind," said Frodo, "for I know what I should do, but I am afraid of doing it. I know what I should do, but I am afraid of doing it." Now, there are really three Christ figures in this book. Right? There's Aragorn, there's Gandalf, and they're Frodo in different ways. And we've said already before that Aragorn is the king, right? And that Gandalf is the prophet, and that Frodo is the priest. He's the one that bears the burden. He's literally the ring bearer, right? All three of these Christ figures will actually suffer a death and resurrection. Now, we've already seen Gandalf. When does he have a death and resurrection experience? Yeah, when he fights, he falls, and later on we'll see him come back. Okay? When does Aragorn, in a sense, die and come back? Doesn't literally die. But where does he go? Okay, some of you know the paths of the dead. We're going to get to that later, right? I mean, in the book 5. He's going to go down through the paths of the dead, and then he's going to return. The movie adds something that's not in the book, and it's so silly that I'm not offended by it, but they make him fall off, and everybody thinks he's dead, and then he comes back. It's like, it's so unnecessary, but it was okay. And then, does anybody know when Frodo is going to almost literally die and come back? When everybody thinks he's dead, because what happens to him? Yeah, Shelob stings him, but it only paralyzes him, like a spider does, right? They like fresh blood. Terrifying creature, aren't they? They want to suck your blood while it's fresh. Right? So all of them, literally, die and raise again. Okay. Now, here, when he says, I know what I should do, but I am afraid of doing it. Is there a time in the Gospels when that's literally true of Christ? The Garden of Gethsemane. And this is a garden, there's actually, in some ways, many of them, right? But this is a Garden of Gethsemane moment. Jesus knows, right? He knows, but he asks God, if it be possible, let what happen? Let the cup pass, right? The cup of suffering, right? Let the cup pass. But he ends by saying, nevertheless, yeah, your will be done, not my will, but thy will be done. So this is literally a Gethsemane moment. But it'd be almost like, and okay, it's, what is it, Luke 4 and Matthew 4, we have the 3 temptations when Satan tempts Jesus in the wilderness. It's very possible that Satan also tempted him. It didn't mention that specifically, but he's going through intense and he's sweating blood and things. I wonder if the temptation is not there. And actually, the musical Godspell sort of does that, where Satan's like tempting him now at this point. And certainly he did tempt him. I mean, remember, it said Satan withdrew for another chance, or like a better season. So there were other times he obviously tempted Jesus, but that's the only one specifically recorded, I guess. Well, maybe when Peter says, "Don't die," and he says, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Maybe that's another more subtle way that the devil's trying to get to him. But anyway, he says, Boromir stood silent. Frodo shivered. Okay. And Boromir says, "I wish to help you. You need counsel in your hard choice. Will you not take mine? I think I already know what counsel you would give Boromir, and it would seem like wisdom, but for the warning of my heart." He knows what Boromir is going to say. Right? And Frodo has this very strong intuition. That would be the easy way. But no, I'm not going to listen. Yet, he says, warning against what? Against delay, against the way that seems easier. It's at a crossroads now. It would have been a lot easier for Jesus to not go to the cross, right? Against refusal of the burden that is laid on me. Always, it's a burden. It's the ring, but it is a burden that he bears. Against, well, if it must be said, against trust in the strength and truth of men. Whoa, that's pretty, them's fighting words. What's that guy's name? Sam? Yosemite Sam? Yet that strength has long protected you far away in your little country, though you knew it not. They've been tested, just like the Rangers have been protecting them. Right? We have been protecting you. I do not doubt the valor of your people, but the world is changing. The walls of Minas Tirith may be strong, but they are not strong enough. If they fail, what then? We shall fall and batter valiantly, yet there is still hope that they will not fail. No hope while the ring lasts. Ah, the ring. That's when he says the line. Is it not a strange fate we should suffer so much fear and doubt for so small a thing? So small a thing, and I have seen it only for an instant in the house of Elrond. Could I not have a sight of it again? It's almost like Bilbo. Can I see it again? Can I see it again? Cover it up, right? He says, I think it's best it should lie hidden. As you wish, I care not. For he says, yet may I not even speak of it? For you seem ever to think only of its power in the hands of the enemy, of its evil uses, not of its good. The world is changing, you say. Minas Tirith will fall if the ring lasts. But why? Certainly, if the ring were with the enemy. But why, if it were with us? Were you not at the council? What he really means is, didn't you take notes at Marcos' lecture? Were you listening? Okay. Did you watch the video? It's like so quiet back there. There we go. Nice smile. Very good. Anyway, he says, were you not at the council? Because we cannot use it, and what is done with it turns to evil. Okay? Cannot use it. Turns to evil. Like, any of you get into that whole thing about the Hope Diamond? Have you ever heard about that? It's a real thing, the Hope Diamond. Apparently everybody that owned it had something tragic happen in their life. You ever hear these crazy stories? Like cursed jewel. You probably heard it passes around. I think that's what it's called, the Hope Diamond. Passed around and stuff like that. And, yeah. There are many. Hopefully there's none at HBU. I don't think so. I once read a really wild thing that there was, like this is more like 20 years ago, there were a bunch of like heavy-set comedians. One of them was John Belushi, and there was other of them that all died real young. And apparently there was this script going around. Have you heard this one? This script for like a heavy-set comedian. I can't remember what it's called. But, each one of them had been considering it like when they died. That's true or not. I remember seeing that in the special. But there were a bunch. I can't even remember all the other names. But that was the one I remember. Sam something. He was a crazy comedian. I can't remember that. But, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. That's the same kind of sin. That was another one. There was a couple of them. And apparently they'd all been reading the script. And they all died, drugs or some mysterious way. But anyway. Might have been. That might have been. I just remember it just was kind of weird. Anyway, everything does, he said, so you go on, Gandalf, Elrond, and all these folk have taught you to say so. For themselves, they may be right. These elves and half-elves and wizards. Who's a half-elf, by the way? That's Elrond, good, because he goes by Elrond half-elven, right? Because he made the choice to be the elf. Sorry, I lost my place. Wait a minute, I just lost it again. Okay, they would come to grief, perhaps. Yet often I doubt if they are wise and not merely timid. Starting to question. But each to his own kind, true-hearted men, they will not be corrupted. We of Minas Tirith have been staunch through long years of trial. And that's actually true. They've really been bearing the brunt of Mordor, although again, the Rangers have been doing their job up north, but they've been bearing the brunt of it. We do not desire the power of wizard lords, only strength to defend ourselves, strength in a just cause. And behold, in our need, chance brings to light the ring of power. It is a gift, I say, a gift to the foes of Mordor. It is mad not to use it, to use the power of the enemy against him. The fearless, the ruthless, these alone will achieve victory. What cannot a warrior do in this hour, a great leader? What cannot Aragorn do? Or if he refuses, why not Boromir? The ring would give me power of command, how I would drive the hosts of Mordor, and all men should flock to my banner. See how easy it is to be caught up for good purposes. Right? What would you do, Bill, if you were the pastor of the church, and there was like this chance to really reach your whole community, and then somebody offers you like $3 million to build a tabernacle, $10 million today, but the guy was a gangster. What do you do? Can you use that blood money or not? What do you think? It's kind of interesting. It's a dangerous thing.
I can answer that only immediately.
Oh.
The Lord provideth, and we take it.
We take it. That's pretty good. But again, difficult choices. Boromir, he strode up and down, speaking ever more loudly. Almost he seemed to have forgotten Frodo. It's almost like a soliloquy, back and forth. Why? I'm strong, I can do it. Why shouldn't I take it? Why shouldn't I have it? It belongs to me, right? Frodo, while his talk dwelt on walls and weapons and the mustering of men, and he drew plans for great alliances and glorious victories to be, and he cast down Mordor and became himself a mighty king, benevolent and wise. Always, I'll do it the proper way, right? A lot of conservatives, Bill, you might probably agree, we tend not to be big fans of the Department of Education, okay? There shouldn't even be a federal Department of Education. Throw it out, okay? That's it? That's it? Yeah, that's a typical thing. But you know what? The Department of Education, Tom, tell me if I'm remembering this right. The Department of Education was set up, I think, under Carter. It was only there briefly, and then Ronald Reagan came in, and he had the chance to stop it right then and there, but he, he's one of my favorite presidents, but he fell prey to the idea of, well, we'll do it right. Okay? It's always the temptation. We'll do it right. Okay? Even like George W. Bush. I mean, again, whether this is true or not, the typical conservative reading of the Vietnam War is the Vietnam War went bad because instead of letting the military run the war in a proper way and do it, they tried to run the war out of D.C., out of the Capitol, out of the White House, basically, right? And then when they had the second Gulf War, George W. Bush ran it out of the White House, okay? So again, it's always, I don't care what side you're on, it's easy to be sucked into it. The temptation is, I can do it right, okay? I will do it right, everything will be fine. And any of us could fall prey to this, right? Just like, well, I'll take that gangster money, but I'll clean it by using it for the Lord's purposes, right? Oh, that's a good point. That's true. I can say that. That's true. Yeah. No, that's true. I'll civilize that guy on the motorcycle. Right. Yeah, see? I mean, to change a rough troublemaker, you would have to be a true blue woman. You got it now too. His wife's name is Blue. I don't know why, but his wife's name is Blue. Good. Did you see that coming? Okay, good. We got you. Okay. That's not like her real name on her birth certificate, is it? Okay. What's that? Sonia. So where'd the name Blue come from? Oh, right.
I love you is really overused. So she asked me one day, she was like, well, if you don't like I love you, what's a better way?
I love blue?
What's a better way to say it? And so when I was a kid, my mother and father divorced when I was very young. My mom was sitting there telling me a story about the glory days of her marriage to my father, and she said, he never called me by my name once. He always called me Blue, and that's how I knew he loved me.
Okay.
And she said, I loved it when he called me Blue. He never called me by my name. She said, I thought that was the most special thing because it was what he called me. So I said, and it meant I love you instead of anything else. He never said I love you. He just said, hey, Blue. So she loved it. She just told me
this code.
Tears in her eyes. I said, that's amazing. So flash forward all these years, and my girlfriend says, well, if you don't like saying I love you, what are you going to say? Well, I'm going to call you Blue.
Oh, that's your...
And so that's why her nickname is Blue.
So would you say you're in your blue period now as an artist?
Well,
Picasso there, blue period.
Even her ring, when they got married, even her ring is a blue sapphire.
Oh, wow. Blue sapphire. Oh, that's what you have too. That's right. Yeah, good taste. Oh, I love that, man. Great stuff. Oh, I'm afraid to ask. What is your nice name? Big Rowdy. Okay. Let's call you Big, man. Big Rowdy. You call me anything you want just to call me late for dinner. That's what you used to say, right? Oh, thank you. Okay. So we don't have Paula here. She's the one that keeps an eye on things. Anyway, look at the next page 399. He says, again, lend me the ring. Boromir says, lend me the ring. He says, no, cried Frodo. The council laid it upon me to bear it. It is by our own folly that the enemy will defeat us. How it angers me. Fool! Obstinate fool! Running willfully to death and ruining our cause. If any mortals have claim to the ring, it is the men of Numenor, and not halflings. Getting more and more angry. It is not yours, save by unhappy chance. It might have been mine. It should be mine. Give it to me. I love how we move stronger and stronger. Give it to me. Frodo did not answer, but moved away. Right? Why not get rid of it? Why not be free of your doubt and fear? You can lay the blame on me if you will. You can say that I was too strong and took it by force. For I am too strong for you, halfling. And again, you can hear the rage taking over him and the madness to possess the ring taking over. His fair and pleasant face was hideously changed. A raging fire was in his eyes. Like when Bilbo touches the ring, especially in the movie. Miserable trickster. Who talks like that? We haven't really met him yet, but some of you know. Gollum says things like that. Tricksy, trickster, tricksy, right? It's almost like we haven't really met Gollum yet. But let me get my hands on you. Now I see your mind. You will take the ring to Sauron and sell us all. You have only waited your chance to leave us in the lurch. Curse you and all halflings to death and darkness. Now that's what we call paranoia. Now I don't trust you. You're going to give it over to and more and more. He rose, okay, and so he says, then catching his foot on a stone, he fell. Well, first of all, I didn't mention, but he puts on the ring and disappears. And he goes after him, and he's yelling, and then he trips, and the movie does it exactly like this. He trips on a root, falls down. He rose, on the top of page 400 now, he rose and passed his hand over his eyes, dashing away the tears. What have I said? What have I done? Frodo, Frodo, come back. A madness took me, but it is past. Come back. There was no answer. Frodo did not... The music? Was that you? Oh, there. Okay. It was coming from my computer. What's it? Okay. I'm going to scare people. Ooh. Okay. Anyway, I know, really, it's wild. I've only been breathing half with this asthma anyway. So. Oh, did she say that? Yeah, I got to tell you that. Anyway, it says, there was no answer. Frodo did not even hear his cries. He was already far away. Terror and grief shook him, seeing in his thought the mad, fierce face of Boromir and his burning eyes. And he runs up to Amon-Hen, the Hill of Seeing, right? And while he's up there, he starts to get, we'd call it apocalyptic vision. He sort of sees the whole landscape, and some of it's the part I just drew there, because they're kind of on their way down. They're not in Osgiliath, but they're getting down there. And he goes and he comes down, and oh, by the way, just in case you wonder, it is still debated amongst Tolkien fans. In the way it was originally published, what is the second book called? The Two Towers, right? And there's actually a debate as to what the two towers are that are being referenced. Okay, one version says the two towers are Minas Tirith and Minas Morgul. But you know what the other answer? And it's it's the one that the movie goes with. Good, it's Isengard and Orthanc, right? Orthanc and you may know the common. It's the Dark Tower of Barad-dûr. That in other words, it's the Tower of Saruman and Sauron. And in the movie, Saruman says something like, nobody can stop the will of the two towers, whatever. But there is a good argument that can be made that the two towers are these two that are facing each other, Minas Tirith and Minas Ithil. But anyway, it's just an interesting debate. And like I said, it really wasn't ultimately Tolkien that came up with those titles. You know that publishers have the right to come up with titles. A lot of my titles have been changed by publishers. Usually, they, I suppose to say no, but fight them. But generally, they're the ones that come up. And just like when you publish an article, they'll often change the title, they'll often change the subtitles and things like that. Wild stuff. Anyway, okay, so he sees all of this, Minas Tirith, all the stuff going on. He sees the towers and things like that as they're breaking up. And then, on page 401, as he moves forward, it says, and suddenly he felt the eye. The eye was on him. Anthony, the eye of Clinton is on you. I'd be afraid if I was him. Okay. So it says, there was an eye in the dark tower that did not sleep. He knew that it had become aware of his gaze. A fierce, eager will was there. It leapt towards him, almost like a finger. He felt it, searching for him. Very soon it would nail him down, know just exactly where he was. Amon-Law it touched. On the other side is the Hill of Hearing and the Hill of Seeing, right? On the other opposite sides of the river. And it's coming closer and closer. It glanced upon Tol Brandir. He threw himself from the seat, crouching, covering his head with his gray hood. He heard himself crying out. This is Frodo. Never, never. Or was it, verily I come to you. This is really terrifying, okay? He could not tell. Then, as a flash from some other point of power, there came to his mind another thought. Take it off! Take it off! Fool, take it off! Take off the ring! Now, the fact that the word fool is used tells you who's saying this. Gandalf. And we find out later that it is Gandalf. That he was striving with it. And then he kind of passed out, which is another reason why it takes him even longer to come back. But we find out later that is. So we've got the two sides. One is Sauron, and the other is the force of Gandalf, the sort of good and evil, and both sides reaching out for him. Now watch this. The two powers strove in him. For a moment, perfectly balanced between their piercing points, he writhed, tormented. Suddenly, he was aware of himself again. Right? This is sort of like when I was trying to push you towards apologetics rather than philosophy. Of course, that makes Talon into the Dark Lord. Okay, we were fighting over your soul, right? He's trying to say, no, forget about this philosophy. Take cultural apologetics. What's that? Dr. Talon, yeah. The Dark Lord on a scooter. No, he's okay with that. He's cool. I just suddenly, the picture was a funny one. Anyway, suddenly he was aware of himself again. Now, Frodo, neither the voice, that's Gollum, that's Gandalf, nor the eye, that's Sauron, right? There is still him, free to choose. There is the, whatever, person made in the image of God that can make a choice between the devil and angel on his shoulder, as we often say. Free to choose, and with one remaining instant in which to do so. Suddenly there is still Frodo. Frodo as a what's the word I want? A volitional being, given will, and he must choose. Right? He took the ring off his finger. He was kneeling in clear sunlight before the high seat. A black shadow seemed to pass like an arm above him. It missed Am and Hen and groped out west and faded. See? So he almost got caught, literally got caught by Sauron, the eye of Sauron, and it went over him. Then all the sky was clean and blue, and birds sang in every tree. Don't you love how he says clean rather than clear? It's also clean of this evil stain that's coming over him. Frodo rose to his feet. A great weariness was on him, but his will was firm and his heart lighter. He spoke aloud to himself, I will do now what I must. This at least is plain. The evil of the ring is already at work, even in the company. He means Boromir, of course. And the ring must leave them before it does more harm. I will go alone. Some I cannot trust, and those I can trust are too dear to me. Poor old Sam and Merry and Pippin. Strider, too. His heart yearns for Minas Tirith, and he will be needed there, now that Boromir has fallen into evil. So, choice is real. And it's very important in Tolkien. Right? The forces are there, but we do have a say. Our will is not completely crushed. Unless we become so corrupted, like the Black Riders, the Nazgul, there is no will left. Gollum still has a tiny seed of humanity, and we'll look at as we go through after the midterm. Has a little bit of seed of humanity, but the Black Riders are gone. There's really nothing left. They're ghosts. They're specters, right? And he puts out his ring again, oddly enough, and escapes. And it's kind of cool because on the next page, I won't read it, but Sam is the only one that understands what Frodo's going through. Basically, he says he knows what he wants to do, but he doesn't know if he's got the courage to do it. So Sam understands it. And Sam, rushes out, even though he can't swim, he rushes out, and Frodo says, thank you for coming. I'm glad, I don't know if I could have made it without you. That's it? He could not have. That's true. Not without his Sam. Beautiful. All right. Let us move to the departure of Boromir. Again, it's amazing when you read this. It's like, shouldn't you have ended the first part with the death of Boromir? It's like, so I see weird that it gets pushed off here and basically sort of marginalized. And again, I mean, the death scene in Tolkien's okay, but the death scene in the movie is the best death scene in the history of film. I'll just tell you that, because I've seen it. Okay, it is the best death scene in the history of film. Now, I wonder if you notice what Tolkien does in the book. I wonder how long it took you to realize that Tolkien does something really strange in terms of narrative, right? And the movie fixes it. Even the radio play version changes this. Okay, I don't know if you notice it, but in Book 3, right, all of Book 3, who is absent from Book 3 completely? Any of you noticed? Same. Frodo and Sam are completely absent from Book 3. Book 3, the first half of the Two Towers. Book 3 focuses only on Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas trying to rescue Merry and Pippin. And of course, along the way, they meet Theoden, the Rohirrim and stuff like that, right? But we don't hear anything about Sam and Frodo. Then, when we get to Book 4, we are going to go back to the beginning. It's parallel action. And Book 4 will only focus on Sam and Frodo, who quickly get together with Gollum, and then they will meet Faramir and all their adventures. And then when we get to Book 5, they'll do that again. Right? And, thank God they didn't do that in the movie. It would be terribly boring, right? But it works here. And I think Tolkien almost surely has in mind, can anybody think of a great epic where for 4 books we only hear about the son, and then for the next 4 books we meet the father? It is the Odyssey, okay? Books 1 to 4 of the Odyssey focus only on Telemachus, and we hear about Odysseus, but we don't see him. Then, and we only hear about his past. Then, books 5 to 8, it's funny because I just taught this in my other class yesterday. I love these things to do together. So, in the Odyssey, books 1 to 4 focus on Telemachus. Then books 5 to 8 focus on Odysseus, but it's simultaneous action. In other words, 5 to 8 are happening at the same time as 1 to 4. Then at the end of book 8, Odysseus in the first person tells his tale. The most famous part, the Cyclops and all that stuff. Books 9 to 12, and they're a flashback. They take place before everything. And then the rest of the epic, 13 to 24, is over here. Isn't that cool? Right? And I think she must have had that in mind. It's not like it's the only book that does that, but it's one of the most famous ones.
At the end of book 5, it's like, yes, the tower's coming down! And go back several months.
Oh, that's true. You're right. We have to go back. Yes.
Oh, that's why the tower.
That is true. Yeah, it is even more it's dramatic or anticlimactic or something. Can you imagine if you were somebody that read The Fellowship of the Ring when it came out? Talking about a cliffhanger just at the end here. We don't even know what's happened to Boromir, what's going on. It's wild. But again, it's we really dig in and we focus on it. And by the way, if you're somebody that's a little bit nerdy, I want to point your attention to something really awesome. And that is on page, where is it? Here it is. One second. Where is it? Is it here? Yeah, here it is. If you look at page 10, it starts on page, here it is. It starts on page 1091. At the back of your book, if you're really into this, Tolkien put this together for us. It is a chronology that goes day by day. And it's really cool. It starts there, and it moves on. See where it says September, October, etc. And it shows us what's happening day by day. And it's really helpful to understand the parallel action from book 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And just so you notice, look at page 1092 and see where it says December 25th, the Company of the Ring leaves Rivendell. So they leave on Christmas. You can't really figure that out just in the book. And then look at a few pages ahead on page, where is it? Page 1094. Notice how it ends on March 25th. That's when that's when it ends. And March 25th is what? It's Greek Independence Day, but you know what else it is? March 25th? That's it? What's it? Nobody knows what March 25th is? What important day in the church? Not Easter. I mean, sometimes it is, but something always falls on March 25th. I mean, you're right. Usually Easter's not that early. Come on, you don't know what happens? Luke chapter 1? March 25th. Somebody came to somebody on March 25th and told them good news.
Oh, stop.
What's it called?
Angel came to Mary.
Good, the angel came to Mary. Archangel Gabriel, do we know what you call that? The Annunciation, thank you. That's Annunciation Day, March 25th. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're not going to. They don't talk about that. But particularly in the Catholic Church, but also the Orthodox. Very, very important. March 25th, Annunciation Day, exactly 9 months before December 25th. Right?
No one has an exact.
Yeah, that's true, probably. But anyway, that was really important to because that's the Virgin Mary. Okay, and Tolkien was very. I mean, in some ways, you can say that Tolkien felt towards the Virgin Mary like who feels towards who in this book. The curmudgeonly old Tolkien had a great devotion for the Virgin Mary, just like what crusty person has a great devotion for another lady. Come on. In this book. Gimli and Galadriel, right? Gimli, the crusty old sailor, right? Is just he just completely, there's nothing romantic about it. He's completely won over by the lady. And after he meets her, anytime anybody says something bad about the lady, he's like ready to kill him. The best part is when he's in the, where is it? Well, first it's with the Rohirrim, right? When Éomer says, and then later on, though, they're in the hall of Theoden, and I think Wormtongue says something, and he walks forward, and Gandalf puts his hand right there, and it's exactly in the movie like it is in the book. Stop! He knows exactly what he's going to say. He's coming in there, right? But he's won over by the beauty of the lady. Okay, and when you said that, Abigail, you might have had in mind. Remember when we were watching the coming attractions for the Hobbit movies? It was either the second or third movie, and there was that weird thing where like Galadriel picks up Gandalf, and they like look at each other like they're lovers. Remember that? Everybody's, what are they going to do with this movie? We were all really freaked out. Yeah, everybody was freaked out. It is weird, but especially when we saw the coming attractions, just by itself, what are they going to do? It's bad enough we got an elf, dwarf, love affair. But we don't need this. But there is one part where I think Galadriel like picks him up and carries him out. I mean, he is strong. Like he's a feather or something. Anyway.
There's a funny meme about one of the scenes between Gandalf and Galadriel on the Hobbit. And then Celeborn is just like, where is Gandalf? I want to speak to him.
Celeborn, no, that poor guy. Anyway, he doesn't do much. At least he's not as weird looking as Thranduil. Legolas. Anyway, so look at page, what is it, 414. The death of that, again, Boromir is redeemed. So sort of like, if you know The Hobbit, who else is sort of redeemed in his death, who kind of went bad but then fought and died? Thorin Oakenshield. It's a little bit similar. And then Thorin doesn't go quite as bad as Boromir, but he's pretty close. Yeah, and he actually really is a jerk. Actually, we're right. I mean, it's amazing when you read it again. Yeah, he won't give up anything. It's like, can we have a few trinkets? No, out. It's all mine. Yes, because of me, your entire town has been torched. But don't come to me asking for some, insurance money. I've got an entire mountain full of gold. I can't have any. So it's sort of like insurance companies in America. Okay. They're happy to take your money, but then when something happens, they're like, that's not covered by my policy. Like they make you feel like you're going for a handout. I'm not going for a handout, buddy. I've been giving you thousands of dollars for years and years, getting nothing out of it. Anyway, but he confesses. He says, I'm 414. I tried to take the ring from Frodo. I am sorry I have paid. They have gone, the halflings, the orcs have taken them. I think they are not dead. Orcs bound them, right? Farewell, Aragorn. Go to Minas Tirith and save my people. I have failed. No, said Aragorn, taking his hand and kissing his brow. You have conquered. Few have gained such a victory. Be at peace. Minas Tirith shall not fall. Boromir smiled. Which way did they go? Was Frodo there? But Boromir did not speak again. Alas, thus passes the heir of Denethor, Lord of the Tower of God. Okay. Now that's not bad, okay? But most of you know in the movie, when he's calling out to him, and then Aragorn says, it's like the perfect economy of words and perfect power. Aragorn says, I do not know what strength is in me, but I will not let the White Tower fall, or my people, or our people fail. And then Boromir says, our people. It just opens up the whole thing. Our people. And he's such a great actor, Sean Bean. And then he says, I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king. Much you can just Google that little part, on YouTube or something like that. It is unbelievable, just those few economy of words. Because he does say it here, but it's different. He doesn't just say, in the movie, I will not let Minas Tirith fall. It may be implied, but I will not let our people perish. Our people. Now, the movie does something different, and I think both work, okay? In the movie, this is not really true in the book. In the movie, what Aragorn is struggling with is whether or not he wants to fully identify as king. That's not really what happens in the book. Several times he says, I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, all that. In fact, I don't know if you notice it, but in the book, when he leaves Rivendell, what does he have already? The sword, Undurin, the flame of the West. That is the sword of the king, the blade that was broken and has been reforged. In the movie, it's sent to him much later, just before he goes to the paths of the dead. And basically in the movie, that's what he's struggling with. And I think it works very powerfully. And this is why it's such an important death scene, that he is now finally identifying, I am the king, I identify with my people. And that is what allows Boromir to go to his death in peace. Now, in the novel, it's a little different. Does anybody understand what Aragorn is struggling with here? It's not so, he is the king. You get it? It's a little less clear in the book. You see, what he's struggling with is, what should he do, basically? How do I lead? Where do I go? When Gandalf died, he's like, I don't know what to do, right? I don't know what to do. I'll ask Frodo. I'll ask the little midget dude, right? Not me, the king, right? So it's a little bit different. In some ways, you can say the movie works better. You can decide, but it's a little bit different. He reveals himself as king. I mean, right away, he's revealing himself as king. So it's a little bit different, and I'll show you what I mean where he does that. But anyway, he dies, and then Legolas and Gimli show up. I want you to notice something very noble about Aragorn is he does not reveal to them the last words of Boromir, because basically Boromir was a traitor. The implication is later on he told him because he had to, but he keeps that to himself. And he says, bottom of the page, Boromir is dead, said Aragorn. I am unscathed, for I was not here with him. He fell defending the hobbits while I was away upon the hill. The hobbits? Where are they then? Where is Frodo? I do not know. Before he died, Boromir told me that the orcs had bound them. He did not think that they were dead. I sent him to follow Merry and Pippin, but I did not ask him if Frodo or Sam were with him, not until it was too late. All that I have done today has gone amiss. He's a little more down on himself in the book. He keeps making the wrong decisions, right? He knows he's the king. He identifies with it, but am I ready to make those decisions? And he goes back and forth, back and forth. And then they don't... Go ahead. I think we have to. Let's do it like that, or a year like that, like the last year. Then they don't have time to bury him. So how do they quote bury him? Do you understand what they do? Yeah, they put him in the boat. All his armor is the horn, the horn of Gondor. Am I saying that right? Yeah, the horn of Gondor, which is split in half, right? And they send him down the river, the Falls of Rhoros, who will die. Right? That's a little bit like what kind of a funeral? Like a Viking. And sometimes the Viking, they set it on fire too, but just the idea, sending them away in a boat, it's a very Viking thing. And they will send him, and later on, it's a really weird scene, but Faramir will see him, and it sounds like it's a dream, but he really sees him, and then he goes on, and somehow he gets the horn anyway, because the horn finds its way to the cloven horn, that's the way to say it. The cloven horn finds its way to the lap of Denethor, the father. But anyway, down he goes, on there, and he is sent out to the great sea and onto Anduin, and past Anduin onto the, beyond that, which is just, there's something beautiful about it. And maybe he's sleeping, waiting like King Arthur or something. Okay, now look at page 419, because here we'll see a little bit more clearly what I mean by Aragorn struggling more with what do I do than with anything else. And he says, okay, it's 419, that paragraph before the space break. Let me think, and now may I make a right choice and change the evil fate of this unhappy day. So again, what shall I choose? This is what he's struggling with. I would have guided Frodo. I will follow the orcs. I would have guided Frodo to Mordor and gone with him to the end. But if I seek him now in the wilderness, I must abandon the captives to torment and death. My heart speaks clearly at last. That's why they keep waiting, because they don't know what to do. He's waiting for some kind of almost revelation or intuition of what to do. So, my heart speaks clearly at last. The fate of the bearer, Frodo, is in my hands. And notice he's become the bearer with a capital B. How about a Christ figure? He's the bearer. Okay, is in my hands no longer. By the way, does anybody know what the name Christopher means? Very popular name. Is your full name Christopher, or is it just Chris? It is, okay. You know what Christopher means? Well, you can tell the first part. Christ. And Pharos. Anybody think in Greek? Pharaoh means I carry. Christopher means literally Christ bearer or Christ carrier. And the old story of Christopher is he came to a bridge, and this little child wanted him to carry him on his back. So St. Christopher took the child, and as he walked, the child got heavier and heavier and heavier, and it was actually Christ. It's an old legend, as the Christ bearer. So that's you. You're the Christ bearer. Or you could be the Clinton bearer. Yeah. Anyway, my heart speaks clearly at last. The fate of the bearer is in my hands no longer. The company has played its part. Yet we that remain cannot forsake our companions while we have strength left. Come, we will go now. Leave all that can be spared behind. We will press on by day. Forth the three hunters, and off they go. Right? And what is the line? It's not in the movie, but as they're in the book, as they're running, what does Gimli say? You know, we dwarves are very good at sprints. What did he say? I don't remember the last line.
Very good at short distances.
I love it. But not this long. And the run they make. Later on when they meet Amber, he's like, I call you not running, I call you Wingfoot. I mean, this is unbelievable how much they've run. Like 150 miles in 2 days or something like that. It's an unbelievable feat. The great run, and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, cool stuff. Okay, the Riders of Rohan. I think you said you loved this. And the posturing of these characters is just wonderful. And the movie just gets it perfect as they go back and forth, right? They find, as they're going, they find that Pippin, and by the way, just again, those of you that are interested in film, you'll notice that in the book, every so often, Pippin actually does something a little bit smarter. Like he's the one that throws down the ring. But generally in the movie, they always want Pippin to be the dumber one. And in a way, he is in the book, but not as much. The movie wants to make a little more distinctiveness. Because sometimes Pippin does actually smart things. But the movie, yeah, it's not fair. What's that? Oh, that's right. Well, you're right. They always, yeah. I mean, they're funny things. I mean, they want to make some distinction between it. You still love Pippin, though. He's still courageous, but yeah, but he doesn't know. Fool of a tooth! Throw yourself in next time and save us all the trouble. And if you want to use that word, fool of a something, it's great. Do you remember the great line when they see the brooch? Not idly do the leaves of Lorien fall, which is right in the book, and it's a great line in the movie. I love it. Not idly do the leaves of Lorien fall. Oh, a whole book of people that talk like Yoda. It's just great stuff. Anyway, oh man, look at page 426. There at the top. Tonight he is shrouded anyway, Gimli murmured. Would that the lady had given us a light, such a gift as she gave to Frodo, the star glass. Look what he says. It will be more needed where it is bestowed, said Aragorn. With him lies the true quest. Ours is but a small matter in the great deeds of them. That's what's unbelievable about this novel. These unbelievable deeds they do, the Battle of Helm's Deep, the Battle of Pelennor Field, all of it means nothing if Frodo doesn't destroy the ring. I mean, all of this in a weird way is a distraction to keep everything going. All of it, of course, is Gandalf's fault, because if he had started this 5 years ago, there'd be no problem. But because he waits and waits and waits and waits and waits, I mean, it's really funny. But anyway, but notice what he says. It's but a small matter in the great deeds of this time, a vain pursuit from its beginning, maybe, which no choice of mine can mar or mend. Well, I have chosen. Okay, right now, I have a duty, and it's to say, and you know what? How do you deal when you're living in confusing times like this? You just do, I can't remember who said this, you just do the next right thing. Okay? We can't decide everything, but do the next right thing, whatever that means. Whatever it means, helping a person or doing this or showing courage, just do the next right thing, one at a time. We don't see all things. I mean, Jesus himself didn't try to heal everybody in the entire Middle East. He helped the people that were in his sphere. He didn't do some magic, whoosh, and then everybody, like I don't want to make fun of it, but is that real? Like on the what is the show, the 700 Club, where he's praying, he's like, there's somebody in Mississippi that's being healed. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know. Well, I don't know. Like I said, I mean he's Oh, his mistakes, you mean? His mistakes, or even? Yeah.
But again, like, you think in his wisdom, that he didn't come back until he knew Frodo would be ready.
That's possible too. I mean, you're right. The book tells us that. Now he's ready. First, he wasn't ready to leave the Shire, but he's kind of sowing. Yeah. I mean, this is what's wonderful too. Gandalf is not perfect. He has his flaws as well, and he realizes it sometimes that he's too wishy-washy, and he should have said something. He should have told him. Like, for instance, we won't get there till hopefully next class we'll get there with the Palantir. Instead of telling Pippin what it is, he doesn't tell him, and then he steals it. It's like, you could have told him. Okay, but no, I'm too distracted. I'm thinking about other things. I should have picked up on this, but I didn't, and all that sort of stuff. So, in other words, he makes mistakes. He has flaws, which is important. He is flawed, right? I mean, even angels are flawed in that sense in the Bible, right? They're obviously capable of falling, since some of them did, right? It seems like no more angels are going to fall anymore. It doesn't tell us exactly, but it doesn't seem like there are any more that are being tempted, although I don't know. Wild stuff. Let's get to their meeting, which is so... Okay, first of all, this wasn't clear to me till like the third time I read it. These Rohirrim are pretty smart. How is it that they're almost on top of Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn, and they don't even see him until they cry out? Okay, good. Do you understand why? Good. They're wearing the Elvis Cloaks, okay? And the cloaks make them... I said that in the thing. And remember again, the difference between the sort of instrumental, technical magic of Saruman, the man with the mind of metal and wheels, we'll see that later. This is the true magic of the elves, right? And we said it, and I'll say it again, that they are not invisibility cloaks like Harry Potter. They are cloaks that are so endued with the lore of stone and wood and tree, everything's in it, the weave, that they just blend in. There's what I call a sympathetic magic. We see it in the Waybread, right? The Lembas. That can feed you. There's something linked to it. We see it in the light that she gives, right? We see it in Galadriel's mirror, which seems to be, again, in sympathy with the world around. There's just the magic of Lothlorien itself. Remember when Frodo feels like he's almost part of the tree? It's like that moment, so touches it, and he's almost like got inside treeness. Wild stuff. I mean, this is the deeper magic of the elves, the sympathetic magic, as opposed to the technical magic, the dark magic of the two. Remember I said it, that Galadriel says, I don't understand, you seem to use the same word magic of what we do and what the enemy does. Okay, they just don't understand this. And again, they're very, very, very deep. And even Gandalf, okay, when they say, Gandalf, make us a torch, what does Gandalf say? Give me a piece of wood. I can't burn snow, right? In other words, you can't... his kind of magic needs to work with nature. It doesn't create out of nothing. Only God can create ex nihilo, out of nothing. And isn't that what happens in the Avatar I mentioned? The cartoon Avatar? Right? Whether you're a waterbender or a airbender, don't you need the stuff to bend? You can't make water come out of nowhere, right? But once it's there, you can bend and shake and move. Well, that's the kind of magic of the elves, and in that sense, it's the magic of Gandalf as well. He needs to work with existing... One of my favorite examples of a sort of natural sympathetic magic, do you understand how the Ents are able to destroy Isengard? You haven't got there yet, but do you understand how they're able to destroy Isengard? Okay, well, first of all, a tree, how does a tree... Okay, if you have a really, really big tree right by your house, it will eventually destroy your foundation. Why? The roots will go in slowly, slowly, until it will crumble. It's just like it's, chalk. Right? Say again? Good, it'll go in, but very slowly. What happens here, the magic of the Ent is a magic. You've all seen, Disney started this, but you've all, what's called the stop motion, where you put it on a bud that's opening. Right? It just takes a picture every day or whatever, and then it looks like. You've seen that, right? Well, that's what happens. When the Ents are destroyed, they're putting their roots in it, but it's like it's happening super, super fast. But it's still a natural process. Sooner or later, it will shatter almost anything. A solid concrete foundation will be just turned to dust by a big enough tree root that goes through it slowly. It's just sped up. C.S. Lewis says this about Jesus' miracles. They're not breaking the laws of nature. They're working together with the laws of nature. What was Jesus' first miracle that he did? Turning wine into water, turning water into wine. That unbaptist miracle, right? Turn water into wine. Now, as Lewis tells us, every day water turns into wine. It just takes a very, very, very long time, right? The water moves up and makes the grape grow. I mean, in some ways, all drinks are rarefied water, Lewis says. It takes a long time. It goes and grows up, then it's crushed, then it's fermented, and it becomes wine. Every day, some fish becomes lots of fish, and some wheat becomes lots of wheat. But when Jesus, who created nature, is there, boom, when he does it in 1 second and feeds 5,000 men with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, now the mask is off and we see the real magic that we never saw before. But what that shows you is that Jesus is the true Bacchus. He's the true Lord of nature, and he's here, and nature now responds to him. That's the deeper kind of magic, right? And again, by the way, if you want to look that up, it's in Miracles, a book that Lewis wrote called Miracles. Remember that one? We did that? Yeah, that's a good one. Have you read Miracles? I don't think I read that. That's a little bit harder one. Have you ever tried that one? Bill? Miracles. It's worth reading. Yeah, it's good. Oh, yes, it was over chapter 3, and he rewrote it and made it impossible to understand. And now, but even if you haven't read Miracles, if you've read a book called God in the Dock, which is his best collection of apologetic essays, a lot of those essays became miracles anyway. So if you have that book, it's really good. But anyway, so we come upon them, page 430. Here's the first thing we learn about the Rohirrim. We've got to get a Rohirrim for you, Amanda. I think you'd like these horse boys. I think you'd like one of these horse boys, these Rohirrim. What's that? The Rohirrim, Amanda. You ride horses, Amanda? Oh, you don't? See, you've been a horse. Anyway, the bottom paragraph, he says, I have been among them, the Rohirrim. Oh, by the way, ladies, you might like this. If you watch the special thing, in the movie, 2/3 of the Rohirrim are actually girls with beards. Yeah, I mean, just because they so many, I don't know, I guess a lot of girls are into, what's it called, horsemanship, equestrian, whatever. And so a lot of them, they just put beards on them because they couldn't find enough guys. It was pretty funny. So you wouldn't like that job, huh? You know, can you ride a horse? No. Oh, it'd be pretty cool. You ride a horse? Do you know, one time I rode a horse and I didn't realize it. I was holding on to the horn, on the saddle. I was holding on to it so hard that when I got off, there was a hole in my hand. It wasn't bleeding, but you see that when your skin gets pushed, there was like a hole in my hand. I had no idea that I was holding onto it so tight. You know. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I just couldn't, as most people, if you can't get the motion of the horse, what happens is smacking your butt, smacking your butt. And it's really sore after a while. You have to get it so you're moving with the horse. And some people just never get it. I don't know if I ever actually got that motion. Are you good? Robert, are you a horse? Are you? Okay, that's good stuff. Man. You don't burn them, I hope. I'm branding them. Anyway, he says, I have been among them, we're here, but look what he says. They are proud and willful, but they are true-hearted, generous in thought and deed, bold, but not cruel, wise, but unlearned, writing no books, but singing many songs, after the manner of the children of men, before the dark years. They could be Homeric heroes, they could be from Beowulf. I mean, they're strong, they're direct, they're honest, okay? I mean, he's trying, they're like from the youth of the world or something. And by the way, they're in a way, they're like little kids, but they're strong, right? And if any of you have ever read Out of the Silent Planet by C.S. Lewis, have you read that? There's a group called the Crossa. They look kind of like giant beavers, and they're like this. They're Homeric warriors, right? They're simple and direct and pure. You might say someone in whom there is no guile. Somebody say that about somebody else? Behold, a man in whom there is no guile. Remember? First it ends. When he says it of, well, I think he says it to Philip, but he's saying it of Nathaniel. Behold, a Nazarite in whom there is an Israelite in whom there is no guile, guileless, true-hearted, generous. I mean, he loves these people. Okay, they're direct. They can be a little bit wild and unkempt, but that they are true. Right? They're honest, and what I mean without guile. Well, later on he says, the Rohirrim do not lie, and therefore we can see through people who do. Like Tolkien loves this group of people, and they've got those of you ladies who like guys with long hair. Okay, they've got long. Page 431 says, tall and long-limbed, their hair flaxen pale, flowed under their light helms and streamed in long braids behind them. Their faces were stern and keen, and their hands were tall spears of ash. Achilles carries an ash spear. Painted shields were slung at their backs, long swords were at their belts. I almost imagine them taking their hair and plugging it into the horse. That's Avatar, right? That's the coolest thing in Avatar. These are weird stuff. They plug them into the tree and they plug themselves in it. Weird stuff, okay? That's like sympathetic magic becoming paganism or something like that. But anyway, it's weird. You know what I'm talking about? You remember that? Are we ever going to see movies 2 and 3? And isn't he making it with this? Or maybe he's making 3 and 4 at the same time or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? Avatar? The not the little kid. Avatar, yeah. What? Yeah, not Airbender, but Avatar. How long? Has it been 10 years since that movie came out? Longer? And of course, it was 10 years before that Titanic came out. He's just like taking longer, and he must think he's going to live forever. Maybe he's got a ring or something. James Cameron. It's like, are you going to make this movie? You're not going to live forever. You know who else is not going to live forever if he doesn't finish writing his book? Yeah, you got a George R. R. Martin. What do you call that? Game of Thrones. It's like, you're going to finish, and the guy does not look healthy if you've ever seen him. So he left his notes somewhere. You know, the whole last 2 seasons were, there's no book or something like that. I don't know. Maybe they consulted him or something. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, to give him some ideas. I don't know. It's wild. Weird. Okay, so here we go. Here's the meeting. That's so much fun. Page 432. And see, this is what I mean about the elven cloaks. They say, this is about halfway down page 432. He says, he bent his clear bright eye again upon the ranger. That is no name for a man that you give, and strange too is your raiment. Have you sprung out of the grass? How did you escape our sight? Are you elvish folk? No, one only of us is an elf, Legolas from the woodland realm in distant Mirkwood, but we have passed through Lothlorien, and the gifts and favor of the lady go with us. Then there is a lady in the golden wood. This guy will be Éomer speaking. As old tales tell, few escape her nets, they say. These are strange days. But if you have her favor, then you also are net weavers and sorcerers, maybe. Because he sees, they don't trust tricky people that are here. Trust people, that politicians, whatever. He turned a cold glance suddenly upon Legolas and Gimli. Why do you not speak, silent ones? Give me your... I love it! Give me your name, horse master, and I will give you mine. Only John Rhys Davies could have done that, right? And of course, what did we all previously love John Rhys Davies in? What movie? Indiana Jones. He was in the first one, and then he came back in the third one, too. Just a great guy. And he is a Christian. I've seen him interviewed. And he's a pretty cool guy. But anyway, he's just great. So he says, give me your, and more besides. As for that, said the writer, staring down at the dwarf, the stranger should declare himself first. Yet, I am named Éomer, son of Éomen, and I am called the third Marshal of Riddermark. Then Éomer, son of Éomen, third Marshal of Riddermark, let Gimli, the dwarf, Gloin's son, warn you against foolish words. You speak evil of that which is fair beyond the reach of your thought, and only little wit can excuse you. Any of you ladies, would you defend Tabitha like that, Bill? Yeah, we hope so. That's his wife, okay? Just back and stop. Okay, stop. That's not helping. You're going to get your head cut off anyway, right? So you really don't want to be a widow like one day after being married. But anyway, he says, Éomer's eyes blazed, and the men of Rohan, again, perfect line from the movie. I would cut off your head, beard and all, master dwarf, if it stood but a little higher from the ground. And at Legolas, you would die before your stroke fell. And already we've been seeing how the dwarf are becoming friends. More and more they can put in the boat together, and they're coming more and more close together. Anyway, wonderful stuff. And the... oh, yeah. Yeah, all of it is. Yeah. And then of course, Aragorn goes, people, let's calm down now. Let's calm down. As Aragorn is trying to do. It's wonderful stuff. Who do you serve, right? I only serve the Lord of the Mark. Mark is another name for Mercia, which is the kingdom of Alfred the Great. That's the Anglo-Saxons. Anyway, he says, page 433, I serve only the Lord of the Mark, Theoden, king, son of Thengel. We do not serve the power of the black land far away. Far away, that ultimately means Sauron. But neither are we yet at open war with him. And if you are fleeing from him, then you had best leave this land. There is trouble now on all our borders, and we are threatened. But we desire only to be free, and to live as we have lived, keeping our own and serving no foreign lord, good or evil. We welcome guests kindly in the better days, but in these times the unbidden stranger finds us swift and hard. Okay? So they just want to be free. Okay? They'd be good like good mountain men. Have you heard that phrase, the mountain men? Was it live up the mountains, okay? Stay away from me. I've got an arsenal in my basement. You know what I'm talking about? Did you ever see that movie, Tremors? The giant worms? Come on, you ever seen that movie? And they're going down, and there's a guy living underground who's got the perfect wife. It's the singer. Read back there! And the worms come at him, and he opens up, and he's got like every weapon. He goes, honey, pass me the bazooka. You know, this is like the Texas wife, and he wants it. It's hysterical. Who was the actor that played the husband? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was Reba, with the red hair, Reba. She even had her own TV show for a while, didn't she? Anyway, good old Reba. Anyway. But again, this is the idea. They just leave. They're almost like the old patriarchs. Okay, just leave us alone. Okay, we'll do our. You know, they're like libertarians, but a little more moral. Anyway, so he says a little farther down. Now watch. Aragorn is going to fully reveal himself. Aragorn threw back his cloak. We always have this wonderful reveal. Right? And it says, the bright blade of Andúril shone like a sudden flame as he swept it out. Elendil, he cried. I don't know if you noticed that, but a lot of times when these warriors go into battle, they like call out Elendil, or they call out the place they're from, or their heirs. It's kind of neat as they scream it out and go right in. Right? I am Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and am called Elisar. I'm sorry, guys, but couldn't they come up with a better name than Elisar? That just sounds too girly to me. But anyway, Elisar is, I know. Galadriel gave him that. I don't know why. It sounds girly to me. I don't know. Oh, man, but that's his name, though. He is Elisar. Yeah. Oh, that's true, I guess. Yeah, that's just weird. I don't know. The stone, right. It's the stone. The elf stone. It's the hope. It's linked to that idea. That's the one, yeah. I don't know. I thought I'd go with a manlier name, you know? The Elfstone, Dunedain, the heir of Isildur, Elendil, son of Gondor, everything is all there. Here is the sword that was broken and is forged again. Will you aid me or thwart me? Choose swiftly. Now he sounded like a king. Gimli and Legolas looked at their companion in amazement, for they had not seen him in this mood before. He seemed to have grown in stature, while Éomer had shrunk. Again, this happens again and again, but particularly with Aragorn and Gimli. Aragorn and Gandalf. It happens the most. They're always not revealing, and certainly Jesus does not reveal the fullness of his power. Come on, what's everybody's favorite sci-fi fantasy moment in the Gospels? A woman comes up and does something to Jesus. Touch the hem of his garment. And what does Jesus say? I felt power go out of me. Whoa! Man, it's like the Force in the Gospels or something. Isn't that the coolest thing? I mean, it seems to be her faith that sort of engaged that power. So it's really wild. Jesus! I felt power go out of me. That's just really cool. Come on. And then, Chris, you like that passage? That's cool, man. Woman, thou art loosed. What is that famous black preacher wrote a book with that title? Oh, it's Chicago. Famous black preacher. He's, more Pentecostal. Not JJ. T.D. Jakes, that's his name. T.D. Jakes. Woman, thou art loosed. That was one of his books. Woman, thou art loosed. And that's a line, right, from King James. But anyway, woman, thou art loosed. I always like that. Anyway, here is the sword. You know what? I only heard lately, it turned out one of the greatest black church leaders in Houston turned out to be crooked. What was his name? Yeah. That was such a shame because he seemed like he was doing a lot of good stuff. What they call empowerment, helping people in the city to, and I guess he was full of all sorts of...
What does it say in Revelation about the
Yeah.
church doing a lot of good works and we get church lost church love?
Yeah, that was a shame when I heard that, though, because he did do some good things. What did you say? Caldwell. Travis? No, something called... Kirby Caldwell, not Travis. that's my preacher. Cardwell, actually, but yeah, that's his name. Yeah, and his wife is still a big humanitarian and stuff. His wife's actually good friends with Barbara Elliott. He brought her to campus when you might have been there, because I met her. Anyway, but this is a shame. Well, Robbie's not great. Anyway, anybody can fall. Right? Anyway, he says, okay, they see him, right? He seemed to have grown in stature, and in his living face they caught a brief vision of the power and majesty of the kings of stone. Right? It's the Argonath again. All is revealed in him. For a moment it seemed to the eyes of Legolas that a white flame flickered on the brows of Aragorn like a shining crown. Isn't that cool, man? It just comes out. Éomer stepped back, and a look of awe was in his face. He cast down his proud eyes. These are indeed strange days. Dreams and legends spring to life out of the grass. Isn't that cool, man? I love it. Éomer's just blown away. One thing after another, all these things that were legends are coming along. Tell me, Lord, what brings you here? And what was the meaning of the dark words? In other words, Boromir, seek the sword that was broken in him, Ladrissa dwells, better than Morgul spells, etc., etc. Right? Long has Boromir, son of Denethor, been gone, seeking an answer, and the horse that we lent him came back riderless. What doom do you bring out of the north? The doom of choice. We all have to choose. Man, the doom of choice. You may say this to Theoden, son of Thengel. Open war lies before him, with Sauron or against him. None may live now as they have lived, and few shall keep what they call their own. Okay, he's writing this book in the 40s, right? He starts it, he published The Hobbit 38, and pretty short after he started writing, and for a long time. And what did people in Europe and eventually America learn in the 1940s? That no longer can you be... Well, 1940s is World War II. People learn you can't be passive, remove, neutral, isolationist. Okay, you've got to choose sides. Right? You can't just stay out of it. You've got to choose sides. And America took us a while to get in. And who knows if we would have gotten in if it wasn't for Pearl Harbor? Right? Because we'd had enough of it, and we were only in World War I for like a year. Right? But again, there was that isolation, and he's like, no more. You can't be an isolation. You have to choose sides. There are, the stakes are very, very high right now. Choose this day whom you will serve, right? You have to choose. A little bit farther down, then he hears about the hobbits, and he says, Hobbits, said Éomer, what may they be? A strange name for a strange folk, said Gimli. But these were very dear to us. It seems that you have heard in Rohan of the words that troubled Minas Tirith. They spoke of the halfling. These hobbits, the ones they're looking for, are halflings. Halflings? Halflings? But they are only a little people in old songs and children's tales out of the north. Do we walk in legends or on the green earth in the daylight? Now watch what Aragorn says. This is so profound. A man may do both. For not we, but those who come after, will make the legends of our time. The green earth, say you? That is a mighty matter of legend, though you tread it under the light of day. Somewhere C.S. Lewis said, is not even the sky a myth? It is something. It is the green earth, but it is a myth. It has a legendary quality as we make it, sort of the carpet on which we tread. Everything. It's basically, and again, just think about when this was published in the 50s, right? Tolkien and Lewis helped to re-enchant the world, because especially after World War I, more and more, at least in the West, became disenchanted. Right? No more fantasy. In the 1920s, 30s, 40s, almost into the 50s, people had thrown out fairy tales and children, so they were only for children. Right? And as Tolkien said, old genres are like old furniture. When they go out of style, you move them into the nursery. Right? A lot of what we think of as nursery The nursery furniture, like the crib and stuff. A lot of the style, not so much now, maybe 50 years ago, a lot of the style in nursery was actually like a Victorian stuff from earlier, like Chip and Dale and things like that. A lot of it was actually an older style, and it got moved into here, right? And actually, if you go look at the early stuff from our founding fathers, it's actually not very exciting looking, because the period of it was just plain chairs. It actually wasn't the elaborate stuff. I don't remember what they call it. Regency? I don't know if you know this stuff. But it doesn't. It's not that elaborate. Like we think everything old has to be elaborate. They go in and out. But in the same way, fairy tales, which used to be read by everyone, got moved to the nursery, right? And I think I told you this, that Tolkien and Lewis both agreed that something only worth reading by children is probably not worth reading at all. And Tolkien and Lewis challenged each other. Maybe we need to write the kinds of books we want to read. And so here, this book is a defense of fairy tales in a way. It's a defense of an enchanted world, right? We live. Anybody ever heard? Okay, there are certain books that people talk about, but nobody ever reads them. Okay, one of them is called The Secular Age by Charles Taylor. Have you ever heard of that? You use that? It's called A Secular Age by Charles Taylor, and he talks about how the secularization of the world, and he uses a lot of weird terminology, but he says that people used to live in a porous world. We live in a buffered world. It's actually terminology. Porous. P-O-U. P-O-U. I think it's that. Porous. And the other is buffered. Okay? Can you guess what porous means? What's porous? Like a sponge is porous, okay? And buffered, there's a, it's buffered. It's covered with insulation or whatever. So what it means is, before the Enlightenment, people lived in a porous world. In other words, the supernatural kind of came and went. We were not safe from the supernatural. Now, sometimes that meant true Christianity and religion. Sometimes it meant voodoo and witchcraft and fear. Right? But they lived in a world where they took for granted that the supernatural and the enchanted was all around them, and they couldn't simply barricade themselves from it. But ever since the Enlightenment, we live in a buffered world where we're safe. We don't want anything. So we don't have any more goblins, but we may also not have any angels, so we're in a buffered world. And here we're realizing that the enchantment is everywhere. Just think about if you're Amber, okay? You've just heard that there is a lady in the woods, and she's not evil, right? You've just heard that Aragorn, the heir of Elendil, has arrived, and he's got the sword that was broken 3,000 years ago, right? All of a sudden, it turns out there really are halflings. Okay? There really are halflings. Not Emma Perry, but real halflings. Anyway, or Maria. It was Maria's birthday yesterday. She turned 21. Did you see that? Maria Cook? I don't know if you know her. She turned 21. Uh-oh. You're going to go get her a drink? Is that what you're going to do?
No, I would never get anything.
Anyway, he says, and all these legends are coming true, right? He says, time is pressing, so we must hasten south, Lord, as they move on, okay? A little farther down, all that you say is strange, Aragorn, yet you speak the truth, that is plain. The men of the mark do not lie, and therefore they are not easily deceived. They may be childlike, but they're not stupid, okay? They see and they understand, right? Let's skip ahead a little bit. Wow. Then again, about the wonder of all of this, we find out that they refuse to sell their horses to the men of Mordor. You know why? Yeah, they mistreat them. We will not sell a horse at any price to people that will actually mistreat them. Right? But then, okay, very, very important. Let's look at page 438. This may be one of the most important lessons that the Lord of the Rings can teach us today. Okay, about a third of the way down. I had forgotten that, said Eomer. It is hard to be sure of anything among so many marvels. The world is all grown strange. Elf and dwarf in company walk in our daily fields, and folks speak with the lady of the wood, and yet live. And the sword comes back to war that was broken in the long ages ere the fathers of our fathers rode into the mark. And then he asks a question. how shall a man judge what to do in such times? Oh, I'm sorry, 438. How shall a man judge? And he's thinking morally, right and wrong. Now look what Aragorn says. As he ever has judged, good and ill have not changed since yesteryear, nor are they one thing among elves and dwarves and another among men. It is a man's part to discern them as much in the golden wood as in his own house. What does he mean by that? Good and ill have not changed since yesteryear, nor are they one thing among elves and dwarves and another among men. What is he saying about right and wrong, morality? It's not subjective. Objective moral truth exists. And we live in a very relativistic age that won't accept that anything's wrong, right? Except being intolerant, I guess, today, right? So, does anybody know what shorthand word Lewis used to talk about this? Objective moral standards that are known to all people at all times? You know the word? We've heard it before. 3 letters. The Tao. T-A-O. Tao or Tao. As a British guy, who would have anglicized it to Tao, but technically it's pronounced Tao, as in Taoism or Taoism. Lewis used the word Tao. He uses that word in the abolition of man, but he's also sort of talking about it in mere Christianity. The idea that there exists a universal, cross-cultural, moral, ethical code, that basic morality is known to all people. Sometimes it's called natural law, objective moral values. It is written in our conscience. Right? And if we don't have a conscience, we can get help from Jiminy Cricket. Give a little whistle. Okay. Any of you ever seen Pinocchio, by the way? It's a really great cartoon. It's like an hour and 15 minutes. It's so short. It's unbelievable. What's that? Yeah, it is. Dumbo is really an acid trip. Pink elephants on parade. It is terrifying. What's that? Oh, are you serious?
When he turns into a donkey?
Oh man, that is terrifying.
Or when he turns into a...
Well, half donkey, that's right. It's an ass, that's right. Is that?
I can't remember who it had some sort of big name.
No shit, they're making a live-action Pinocchio. Yeah, I haven't heard that yet. But now, the live-action Dumbo is just a different movie. It's not great, it's interesting. It's a Tim, what's his name? Tim Burton. So it is interesting to watch, but it's really odd. And there's only one reason to watch it. You watch it and tell me I'm not right. The villain in that movie is Walt Disney. There's no other way to interpret that movie. Just watch it and see who the villain is. It takes a while to realize he's the villain. He is Walt Disney. That's hysterical. But Tim Burton, I think, didn't particularly like working for Disney. So anyway, it's a strange movie. Anyway. What's that? Yeah, you're right. He's kind of uneven. Big Fish was good. That was good. That was one of his best ones. A Corpse Bride was okay, but it wasn't as good as Nightmare Before Christmas. But yeah, I know. You're right. Some of his old ones were good. What was that? What was that one he made about that terrible director? Yeah, that was actually a pretty good movie. Strange, but it was a good movie. Edwardson, that's fun. I mean, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is fun. It was unnecessary, though. Why do you remake a perfect movie? Do you know that Steven Spielberg is remaking West Side Story?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a perfect movie. I'm not even going to make it any better. I'll be interested to see what he does with it. But strange remakes are coming. When I see an elephant fly. I can't understand half of the words in the songs in Dumbo. If you ever watch it, I'm not sure what they're saying. In the beginning, there are these guys putting up the tents, and I think they're singing, "We go out at night, we get drunk." I don't know what they're saying, but whatever it is, it doesn't seem appropriate to kids. I mean, no, I don't. Maybe that's why. But watch it. You see what I mean? You see what they're saying? It's wild. No, I'm talking about the old Dumbo. No, the old Dumbo. Yeah, it's really funny. That's great. You've got to see it. You have to see Disney's Big Five. The first 5 cartoons that Disney made are all brilliant, and they're all completely different. I mean, I do love the princess movies. They're well made. But first he made Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is scary. Then he made, I don't know if I'm getting the right order, but he did Pinocchio, Dumbo, Bambi, and Fantasia. Right? Those are all brilliant. They're all totally different. And they're all as much for adults as kids. And here's the cool thing. He makes a movie called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And then the next 4 movies combined have less words than his first title. Because they're all one-word titles. Bambi, Dumbo, what did I just say? Pinocchio, and Fantasia. It's kind of like Hitchcock. He likes one-word titles. Well, not all of them, but he likes one word. I love Fantasia. That's why I think that's why my kids went to HSPB. I raised them on Fantasia. They watched it again and again, and I think it made them love music. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. You all seen Fantasia? You should see that. Artists, you should all see it. It's the beginning of the music video, for which he probably has a lot to answer for. But the that's good. Thank you. It is. Fantasia. Fantasia 2000 is pretty good. It's not as good, but there's still some good stuff, especially the one to Rhapsody of Absolute Love. Oh my gosh! It's based on all the caricatures of Hal Hirschhorn. I love it. I watch it over and over again. Anyway, where was I? Okay. But again, we need to understand that. Oh my gosh, it's getting late. Okay. We'll press on, and I'll let you out early when we do that. Again, we need to understand, okay, that good and evil are good and evil. I don't care whether you're in this country or that country, whether you're amongst the dwarves or the elves or the men or the hobbits. They're objective moral standard. We need that. We're really losing that, and it's really scary. And of course, everybody knows they exist, even if they won't admit it, because you know, how can you say that what the Nazis did is wrong? You can't say what the Nazis did is wrong unless you have objective moral standards. And yet people still act like they don't exist. And anyway, this is my definition of the Tao. My definition of objective moral standards is this. The Tao is the way you expect other people to treat you. Okay? We'll just make it very simple. We all know what morality is. That's what we expect them to treat us, right? And again, now Tolkien is not writing apologetics the way Lewis does, but I mean he's still underlined by the same thing, belief in moral values. In other words, no situational ethics. They don't change from place to place. I mean, I won't say that 100%, because like for instance, lying is wrong, but when Rahab the harlot lies to save it, God commends her. So sometimes there are situations, okay, but if you go into full-blown situational ethics, then we're moving into relativism, basically. Right? You've seen this stuff, Tom, haven't you? Yeah. The slow slide into relativism. Oh, good. Motivation. And you know who understood that fully? Was that great pagan named Aristotle. He understood that motivation makes the difference. Okay, and we understand that in law. Right? Involuntary manslaughter is a lot different than premeditated murder, right? Stuff like that. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there's such good stuff here. Okay. Look at page 441 about Gandalf. At the very top of page 441. Gandalf chose to come himself, and he was the first to be lost, answered Gimli. His foresight failed him. Look what Aragorn says. The counsel of Gandalf was not founded on foreknowledge of safety for himself or for others. There are some things that it is better to begin than to refuse, even though the end may be dark. But I shall not depart from this place yet. Again, that seeing is perilous, that we have hope because we don't know the future. Again, it's an odd thing, but it's a recurring theme in Tolkien. And I think it can be borne out with the Bible, right? The Old Testament is very, very harsh against fortune tellers and stuff like that. We should not know the future. I couldn't believe it when I went to New Orleans for the first thing. What's the famous Catholic church in New Orleans? What is it called? Is it Saint? I don't think it's St. Peter. That doesn't sound right. Anyway, whatever the oldest and biggest Catholic church, when you walk around the grounds, there are all these fortune tellers. Yeah. One of the fortune tellers was a very, very large man in drag. So I didn't pay my money, but anyway, weird stuff. But it's like they were right there in the thing in the church. Crazy. Anyway, that's right. Fangorn Forest. Okay, let's keep moving on. Okay, by the way, when we get to the next chapter, page 444, notice that even within this parallel structure, we have another parallel structure. Because now, okay, chapter 1 and 2 have been following Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn. And now, when we get to chapter 3, we're going to go back and follow Merry and Pippin. So there's sort of parallel action within parallel action when we read this. It's just fascinating. The Uruk-hai are the orcs that Saruman has bred, which means they can run in the daylight. Most orcs, are always in the dark. And anyway, it's a lot of fun. It scares me. My very sweet daughter, one of her favorite lines that she likes to say from the movie is, "Well, boys, look like meat's back on the menu." Is that one of your favorites too? She just loves it. She says it with relish. There it goes. One of these ghoulish girls. I like it. I think I named my daughter Ghoulish because one of the games I used to do when she was very little, we have a second floor, and Stacy's on the top of the steps, and I say, "Stacy, come to me," trying to do Dracula. "No, don't go. And Alex is holding her. And then I say, "Stacy, remember this? Come down, Stacy. I have a gift for you. Come, Stacy. I have a gift for you in my hands." She comes. And when she gets to the bottom, I say, "Look at my gift. I have death in my hands." And I grab her, throw her over my shoulder, carry her screaming in delight. Anyway, it's funny. Ghoulish. That's a lot of fun. So that's it. I just love that. I know, it's great stuff. We have fun. We have fun stuff, I tell you. Oh, everywhere. This is the good stuff. It's got to be the party house. And you know what my daughter's favorite story was? You all know the story about, okay, this man fell in love with this beautiful girl, and he wanted to marry her, right? And this girl always wore a necklace, what they call a choker, a necklace like this, real beautiful. And he finally got married. He said, "Take off your necklace." No, we're happy. Don't ask me about that. So please take it off. No, we're happy. Just let us be together. And like after they've been married a year, he's so curious, takes out some pliers, and he goes and he cuts the necklace. You know what happens? Her head falls off and rolls into the bed. My daughter loved that, man. They take off. Oh yeah, but her head falls. You've heard that one? I'm not even sure where it comes from, or even where I heard it. Yeah, but it falls off and rolls the head. And I would add to it, I say, and then the eyes opened up. "Why didn't you trust me? Now you will never see me again." The head spins and disappears. I guess you're right. That's true. Don't be too curious. That's right. The drop of hot wax or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of funny. We are the fighting Uruk-hai. Anyway, we're going to skip this. It's kind of fun. But we'll skip it. It's great fun. But anyway. Oh, really?
So, for several years, maybe a month, we watched over and over again. She would tell me when this was happening.
Oh, really? Oh, that's my gosh, really? Oh, that's what it's called. Okay. Did it say what country it's from? I wonder if it's France, England, maybe England. I don't know if it says. Maybe, I don't know if it's Schwartz. Oh, maybe it actually has. Maybe I thought maybe it'd just be an old collection of anonymous fairy tales or something like that. That's cool. But I always remember that one. I'm sure she still remembers it. But what's that? Wait, what did you think of as scary? Oh. Well. Oh. I guess they're like the orcs, and the orcs the orcs are even more ferocious in the movie than they are here. In fact, yeah, that's true. Those things, but they are hideous. That's true, maybe.
To me, it's more intense now than it was when I was young.
That's an interesting point. You understand the stakes, I guess, right? What it really means.
I was a very shallow person.
And you've got to see it. Again, watch. The Battle of the Five Armies, right? No. But I'm saying the difference between the Battle of the Five Armies and Pelennor Field is they're both incredibly done with special effects, but we just don't care about what's going on as much in the Battle of Five. We're not invested in every. First of all the dwarves look alike anyway. They did their best to make them look different, but they're still just a bunch of dwarves. And it's like the stakes are just not, and they were never meant to be. That's not Tolkien's fault. He meant it to be a kid's story. The stakes are not as high. But here, every single scene's important because we know the meaning, and that's just an eye. But Theoden and his family, Denethor. I mean, all of them. It's invested with so much meaning that we're not just watching an action thing. We're invested in what's happening because the result of this is going to decide the whole fate of this world and this family and these people. And it's not there in the Hobbit because it was never meant to be there. That's not the kind of book it is. It's just a children's book,
By the way, you mentioned special effects. This is going to sidetrack us a little bit. Have you ever seen the special effects, especially in the extended version?
Right.
There's they call them the scene.
Oh, right. Oh, right, yeah.
And how they make those cities.
Oh, God, it's amazing.
That's almost as good as watching the movie.
Oh, it is. It is.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like some of these cities, what's it called?
Oh, Minas Tirith? Oh, my gosh. Yeah. It's amazing. And you know what? The New Zealanders were so stupid. They decided to be environmentally conscious. And the original trilogy, they made them take everything down. That incredible set for Edoras up on the Windy Hill. And afterwards they realized they lost a fortune in tourism. And then when they did The Hobbit, the Shire's still there. Has anybody been there? I've not been. But you can go to New Zealand and see the Shire from the Hobbit movies. They were smart enough this time not to tear them down because they lost a lot of money. But you do know that for all Christians now, there are two pilgrimages. The first pilgrimage is to the Holy Land. The second pilgrimage is to New Zealand, because that's Middle-earth, and it's also where they filmed parts of Chronicles of Narnia. So it's actually Narnia and Middle-earth is New Zealand. Incredible place. Incredible place. But Treebeard. Let's look at a few things here. Page 463. We meet Treebeard. Can somebody tell me who does the voice for Treebeard in the movie? It is John Reed. Do you know that? The same guy who plays Gimli does the voice for Treebeard. You listen very carefully. Isn't that cool? And it's in the credits if you watch. But yeah, so that was neat. He did double duty for that. And you all know that Christopher Lee, who played Saruman, you say, yeah. Who's emailing me that? About Saruman. I thought it was one of you guys. Anyway, Christopher Lee was actually knew Tolkien. And he read The Lord of the Rings every single year. Oh, Robert! We were having this, yes, yeah. And I knew it was somebody. He's being bashful. But they would ask him questions. They'd go, "What do you think? What do you think?" Because he'd read it even more than Peter Jackson, again and again every year. Cool guy, Christopher Lee, man. He made it into his 90s too. When they first meet Treebeard, which again is great special effect on page 463, they see him and they say, one felt, bottom of 463, one felt as if there was an enormous well behind him, his eyes, filled up with ages of memory and long, slow, steady thinking. But their surface was sparkling with the present, like sun shimmering on the outer leaves of a vast tree or on the ripples of a very deep lake. I don't know, but it felt as if something that grew in the ground, asleep you might say, or just feeling itself as something between root tip and leaf tip, between deep earth and sky, had suddenly waked up and was considering you with the same slow care that it had given to its own inside affairs for endless years. Wow. Wild. By the way, I don't know if you know, but Tolkien does something here. He did a lot in Narnia. Clint, you might remember this, Clint, because you pointed on this. What we just said, just before the paragraph, it says, often afterwards, Pippin tried to describe his first impression of him. To who? To Tolkien? You remember that? I think you pointed out that a lot of times in Narnia, C.S. Lewis says something like, afterwards Lucy tried to describe it, but she really couldn't, and all she would say... It's interesting that he does that. He didn't do that very often. But all of that is in quotation marks, right? The British do that weird thing where they start with one, and then they do 2, where we start with 2 and then we do 1, just to confuse us. And there are some books printed in Europe where there are no quotation marks. You just have to figure out they're speaking. Or they put a little dash. That's really weird. It takes a long time to get used to that. But you know what the coolest thing of all? What do Spanish speakers do when they have a sentence with a question mark at the end? Yeah, isn't that cool? It's such a cool idea. If it's a question, there's an upside down question mark at the beginning, so you know it's going to be a question. And they do the same thing with the exclamation point. You ever see that? Isn't that cool? Okay. I'm losing you. You're getting tired. Okay. But again, we're trying to get this great age deep down in the eyes, wells of, and they keep saying Treebeard's the oldest thing in Middle Earth. I thought that was like Tom Bombadil, but anyway, they go back and Treebeard. You know, there are even people that think maybe they're the same person. They're not. But anyway, but you know, he's old. He's one of the first at the end. They don't say. I've read people that have suggested that, but he never says for sure. Yeah, is he a Maiar? He's just Tom Bombadil. Right here, Tom Bombadil. Tom Bombadillo. You got to get him a feather. He's telling you got to give him a feather for the cap. Like he always wears a feather. I like that. Okay, look on the next page. He isn't, and I love it. You understand? He also is Fangorn. Okay? It's Fangorn Forest, but he is Fangorn. Hey, Clinton, I've got to take off my mask so I can sneeze. Sorry, Amanda, we just made fun of you. Does she remember? She missed it. She missed it. That's okay. She missed it. That's good. Anyway. Okay, now, on the next page, what is it, page 464, Treebeard, okay, is trying to figure out who the hobbits are. Who are these people? He says, you're not on the old lists, right? You do not seem to come in the old list that I learned when I was young. That was a long, long time ago, and they may have made new lists. So this is a list of the various creatures, you know, what we call them, rational creatures that live in Middle-earth. Learn now the lore of living creatures. First name the 4, the free peoples. Eldest of all, the elf children. Right? They were born first. Dwarf, the delver. Dark are his houses. Ent, the earthborn, old as mountains. Man, the mortal, master of horses. Right? So, I don't know if you remember, but remember I told you when we did the Silmarillion why Yavanna created the Ents. Yavanna is the wife of Aule, who created the dwarves. Remember? She created them to protect nature. She created the Ents that are the highest of the vegetable, whatever. And what else did she create? Remember? The eagles, okay? They're the 2 talking things, whatever. And they're there to protect partly from dwarves and other people, right? So here the suggestion is, first the elves were created, then the dwarves, then the Ents, and then the men. Right? We are the children of the sun, rather than the children of the stars. Right? And he says, man the mortal, master of horses. Well, not all men ride horses, but the Rohirrim do, and that's close to where he is. So he sees the Rohirrim. Beaver the builder, Buck the leaper, Bear bee hunter. Remember I told you? That's what Beowulf means. Beowulf means bee hunter, and a bee hunter is a bear. And that's the joke on Bjorn in The Hobbit. So it's a little linguistic pun. Right? Beaver the builder, Buck the leaper, Bear bee hunter, Boar the fighter, Hound is okay. Now, I want to see if anybody can impress me and tell me what kind of poetry, like what's the genre? Is it iambic pentameter? Do you know what it is? Do you know what this form of poetry is? Does it rhyme? Doesn't rhyme, but what does it use? Did you say? You look, hey, good job, I'm impressed. You're exactly right. This is the Beowulf rhythm. Good job. Good. It's called alliterative verse, is what it's usually called. Can somebody tell me what alliteration means? Everybody remembers that from high school. What's alliteration? Good, they all start with the same letter. It's almost like a beginning rhyme rather than an end rhyme. And people have a natural love of alliteration, don't they? Especially in English. Preachers use alliteration a lot. Right? But anyway, it's called alliterative verse. It's what's used most famously in Beowulf. And remember, these are the Anglo-Saxons. And this is the way it works. Okay, it is a 4-beat line. Okay, it can have all different numbers of syllables, but it's going to have 4 accents. And it's going to be like this. Accent, accent. There's going to be a pause. It's called a caesura. And then accent, accent. And then in a full alliterative line, okay, there will be an alliteration here, here, and here. Sometimes they skip that one, but generally in a real alliterative line, the 2 accents in the first half will both start with the same letter, okay? And then in the second half, the first one will be. So you can see it here. So it says, learn now the lore, pause, of living creatures. First name the 4, the 3 peoples. Now watch this. Eldest of all the elf children, because all vowels alliterate. Okay? And the reason I know that is because I learned that from Tolkien himself, reading one of his essays. Right? So it doesn't make a difference what vowel it is. If it starts with a vowel, all vowels alliterate together. That's the rule. Right? Dwarf, the delver, dark are his houses, and the earthborn. See, old is a vowel, but it still counts. Man the mortal, master of horses. Beaver the builder, buck the leaper. Bear, bee hunter, boar. Hound, hungry, hare. Eagle, eerie, ox. Hart, horn, hawk. Swan, whitest. That's a little bit of a cheating there. Serpent. Okay, and something. But isn't that cool? And almost all the poetry that's going to be sung, whatever, by the Rohirrim are going to be in alliterative verse because that's the Anglo-Saxon. Right? And Tolkien was an expert on that. He wrote a famous essay. I gave you parts of it in your course back about Beowulf. We mentioned that before. But isn't that cool that he specifically does it here? Because generally Tolkien likes rhyme. A lot of his poems rhyme. But again, instead of rhyme, it's alliteration. And I think there's something cool about it, and it works particularly. I don't know if it works as well in other languages, but it certainly works really well in English. Is anybody fluent in any other languages? Robert, are you fluent? Oh, you are. Do you? Okay, when you speak Spanish, do you remember like preachers or anybody trying to do that alliteration, make everything sound? You would say it again. Wait, say it again. What? You just yell? But like I said, I'm not sure if it works as well. Now, see, in a language like Spanish or French or Italian, what we call the Romance languages, they're much bigger on rhyme because they have those endings. Everything rhymes with everything else, right? Because you have the ending, right? I mean, don't you know how to speak Spanish? You speak English and put an O at the end of every word, or an A, and it works. Yeah. You could do that with Latin. Just put a U.S. at the end of every word. It just works, you know? But again, for English, which is not as a little more poor in its rhymes, alliteration is just a cool thing. So I just love it, right? And on the next page, 465, we love the hobbits. They write a verse for themselves. They say, half-grown hobbits, the whole dwellers. See, he picked it up. He learns quickly. Put us in amongst the 4 next to man, the big people, and you've got it. Right? Okay, now, elves made all the old words. They began it. The elves, this is not maybe exactly consistent with the Silmarillion, but anyway, the elves helped wake up the trees. Words are so important for elves. And what can you tell me about the Entish language? Do you understand what he kind of says about the Entish language? We don't get many examples of it. But the words grow. As they get longer. What is the name of this? Alalala rumba kamanda lindo borume. The word, it's hill. Hill? Sorry, that's the music man. Anyway, the hill, he said hill is a hasty word for something that sat here for 5,000 years, right? So their names also grow, right? Because their names are stories. There's one people group in the Americas whose names are closest to stories. What group am I talking about? Indians, okay? Like, let me think of an example. Running. I don't know. I can't think of anything. But you've seen, okay? A lot of Indian names will be like almost tell a story of the person, right? Closest to that would be Thorin Oakenshield, where he picked up that thing and picked up an oak and he's, oh. Is he making strange sounds again? You never know what's going on the other side there. So, what are you going to move your studio next time, or try to keep the same one? Are you going to try to keep your same studio or move? Because you're allowed to move your studio from first year to second year. Yeah, you can. But you're going to move back there? Okay. Oh, because of all the bugs, you mean, or it smells?
I told him I put the menu hands in his visible.
Oh man, you better watch out. The place is actually haunted. Oh man. So my name, it's just this idea of their language. Look at how he describes it on page 465, same page. He says, my name is growing all the time, and I've lived a very long time, so my name is like a story. Real names tell you the story of the things they belong to in my language, in the old Entish, as you might say. It is a lovely language, but it takes a very long time to say anything in it. Because we do not say anything in it unless it is worth taking a long time to say and to listen to. Wonderful. He did such a great job in the movie, right? By the way, does anybody know who Tolkien patterned the speech of Treebeard on? If anybody's read this. Yeah, good, Lewis, because when Lewis lectured, he had a kind of a booming voice. And so it is actually based on C.S. Lewis. He said that somewhere. Booming, boom. Good?
I have a tree that's just like
there we go. Boom. It's like boom, boom. And you got to understand that Lewis and Tolkien both loved to take walks together. I might have told you this already. But they loved it, but they were both different kinds of walkers, okay? The two, we'll see which kind of a walker are you, okay? Lewis was the kind of walker that just keeps moving. You don't stop, you keep moving. Tolkien was the kind that stops at every flower and tree to look at. Which one are you? Not Tolkien. I tend to keep going, right? Maybe something will stop me, but usually I keep talking if I'm on a mission, so to speak, right? But they would drive each other crazy. I can just imagine Lewis. Are you going to look at every tree? Tollers, is it called? Are you going to look at every tree? Are you going to hug every tree? Anyway, okay, let's see. Where's a good place to stop? So, they move on, and he says, wait a minute, let's, wait 1 second. Wait a minute, I'm going to see it, maybe it's later. Okay. You like them? Okay, let's end then. Page 460, I'll just say a few more things, we'll stop there. This is wonderful. Okay, he says, page 468, about the middle of the page, it says, we are tree herds, we old Ents. Few enough of us are left now. Sheep get like shepherd, and shepherds like sheep. It is said, but slowly, and neither have long in the world. It is quicker and closer with trees and Ents, and they walk down the ages together. For Ents are more like elves. Okay, they're like elves because they're less interested in themselves than men are. We're always thinking about ourselves, but the elves don't think about themselves as much. And better at getting inside other things. And yet again, Ents are more like men, more changeable than elves are, and quicker at taking the color of the outside, you might say. Or better than both, for they are steadier and keep their minds on things longer. Some of my kin look just like trees now and need something great to rouse them. And they speak only in whispers. But some of my trees are limb-lithe, and many can talk. And then he says it. Elves began it, of course, waking trees up and teaching them to speak and learning their tree talk. They always wished to talk to everything, the old elves did. But then the great darkness came, and they passed away over the sea, or fled into the far valleys and hid themselves, and made songs about days that would never come again. And you know what he's talking about? He's talking about the first age, because in the very beginning, when even the Valar were living in Middle-earth and Beleriand, and then Morgoth attacked and laid waste to it, and that's when the elves, not all of them, but many of them left and went to Valinor. And then later they left. Because we're talking about a long time ago, right? Back in the beginning when everything was alive, a sort of golden age. Never again will they come. Back then there was all one wood once upon a time from here to the mountains of Lune, and this was just the east end. Those were the broad days. Time was when I could walk and sing all day and hear no more than the echo of my own voice in the hollow hills. So we've lost it. And look at on page 469, the poem. Notice what he says towards the end. And now all those lands lie under the wave. Remember? The wave that destroyed Numenor, also completely submerged Valerian. The lands under the wave. Your homework for this week is to talk to a tree. Oh, that's right. He made you do something like that, didn't he? Write books about trees. Are you going to bring Blue so we can meet Blue one of these days, Clinton? Put in your pocket. Amanda, we still want to meet your little guy. How old is he now? 10. Oh, he's 10. He's 2 digits now. Was he excited to make it to 2 digits? You got to bring him by so we can meet him.